Hi, welcome back to Spirit Lounge. I hope you guys are doing really well. Hope you guys can hear me. Yep, the microphone is on. Okay, so today we're going to go through the second revelation of James. Remember, it was a two-part, two chapters covering that. This chapter I really enjoyed. It's a little bit upsetting actually near the end, and I won't tell you why. I'll let you experience that for yourself. But if you feel it through your heart space, I don't know if this event actually happened or not in reality, but I actually enjoyed this because the messages were true. It's not going into the mythology, the Gnostic mythology, but this is, I really enjoyed what this particular passage was telling us. So I'm just going to move my microphone out of the way. Okay, so let's proceed. So I'll put the presentation on the screen there. Okay, so the second revelation of James. So this is slightly different to the first revelation of James. It's not a complex structure, although it states it is. It isn't actually that complex. It's a report from a priest to Theudas, who was supposed to be the father of James the Just. And it's about what James, the teachings James was sharing, which were told to him by Jesus after the resurrection. And he had experience of Jesus after the resurrection, and this is for him speaking to a crowd. And it's just before his capture, because also he was also captured because of the teachings that he was sharing and that Jesus was also sharing. And so he does talk about the Creator God looking to capture and assimilate others. This is talked about, and also talks about Jesus saying he is not James's father is not the same father as Jesus. What that actually means is that Jesus became a father figure to James. So the father of James was actually Jesus, but the true father with a capital F is the father of all. So let's just jump in straight into this. Okay, so the beginning of the priest's report. So this is the priest who was present during this speech James gave to the crowd. And this priest wrote everything down and then passed it on to his father as to what happened to James. Okay, so this is the discourse that James the Just delivered in Jerusalem, and Miriam wrote down. So Miriam was the companion who documented the event. One of the priests told it to Theudas, the father of the just man. "Hurry, lead us to him. There are many who are disturbed at his slander. They are extremely angry. He used to say these things while the multitude of people was seated." So in other words, he's speaking to a mass crowd and they're becoming angry by what is being said. Okay, the discourse of James. James speaks of Jesus and of himself. It starts with a psalm. There's a lot of psalms in this, and I took the liberty of took the time to actually write a lot of them down, and almost in completeness, but not totally, because they were good psalms, and they were saying something that's important for us all to understand. So the psalm was not complete, it was kind of fragmented. And it says, "Blessed is the person who, I am the one who received revelation from the fullness of imperishability," that is the divine realm, "who was summoned by the one who is great, who obeyed the master." He's talking about Jesus here. "It is he who passed through the world without being recognized." So remember in the previous revelation, the first revelation, Jesus said that he passed through the realms. And the archontic realms did not recognize Jesus. Stripping off his clothing, walked about naked, found imperishability but brought up to imperishability. What does this mean? Stripping off clothing, walked about naked. Naked is not physically naked, and clothing is not physical clothes. Clothing is the material ego, human mind self, the false illusionary self of us. Jesus threw that aside, and he walked around naked. Naked means that he walked and emitted and passed on and shared the message of divine consciousness through himself. the Christ consciousness that he was sharing and asking us all to read, to discover from within ourselves. So his nakedness was a divinity, the undiluted, pure divinity and the Christ consciousness message in which he was sharing with others, unabated, unwavering, and unthreatening, and not scared of those who wished him ill. And this is what James is describing: shedding the material ego clothes of the self, walking naked in the Christ consciousness of what truly is. And it's the found imperishability. What does that mean? They're found in within the material world, the perishable world, the world that is has an ending, and brought up to imperishability, which means that he was emanated and also returning to and always connected to the divine realm. This same master came down as a son, as a brother, and was rejected. He might him to free himself from the fetter of death. Came to be in faithfulness. Now I am rich in knowledge. I'm the deliverer. I am to the Father whom I have come to know. Revealed to me, was hidden from everyone, revealed through him. What this effectively means that Jesus came down, embraced James as a brother, and taught him what needed to be not needed to be heard. James had ears to hear, so that he could free himself from his own fetter of death. What is fetter of death? It's not physical death. It's the death of attaching to the archontic realms, the material realm, the realms of illusion, and attaching oneself to this dimensional humanity that we find ourselves. And it came to James in faithfulness, in the faith that this message would be heard and shared, passed on that rich knowledge. James became the deliverer, came to know what the Father was, and that was hidden from everyone, which is basically what the world does to us. It hides this message. We have this implicitly within us when we're born. I want to explain this. When we're born, we don't have forgetting. There is no fetter of blindness. We are aware of it. But the issue with the material realm, it is designed that before you're even able to articulate anything as a child, the dogma and system and paradigms that you live in and the conditioning of organized faith that drums into you a way of belief, and your parents and those of atheism or agnosticism, whatever it might be, drums out from you the existence of anything at all, then you become what is lost in the illusion very, very soon after the ability as a child to converse and to share what you know. Up until that point, as a newborn, you are absolutely, the veil between yourself and the divine is almost non-existent. And that's how it's supposed to be through life. But in this material realm, it is designed to block that. It is designed so you forget it. It's designed so you develop your own veil. And the thickness of that veil is entirely up to your own free will, how thick that veil becomes. Do you move to material, ego, mind, intellect as the God, technology as the God? If you do, that veil will become so thick, you will see nothing else. Do you move into the self and understand that there's always divinity, never forget it? That veil will always be there, but then that starts to thin and thin and thin and thin to the point where it has no significance. Okay, so the next, James recalls the life and words of Jesus. He will be judged with the unrighteous. This is Jesus being judged by the unrighteous. He who lived without blasphemy died through blasphemy. What does this mean? Well, blasphemy in this context means those who turned away from God for me. For me, those who turned away from the belief in the divine and to that lower, the materialism aspect of ourselves, the ego, the loins of lust and the mind of ego, is what we call, in this context for me, is blasphemy. And he died through blasphemy. Those who are attached to that, crucified or persecuted, and turn away from the divine into material intellect as a god. He who was cast out, yet I shall come forth from the flesh in fulfillment. I shall surely die, this is James, shall be found in life. So this is Jesus talking about what Jesus was going to happen. So he was found in, he knew he was going to die, but he will be found, his message would be found in life. He came into the flesh body, but fulfilled, already full of pleroma. I came to the world to be judged. I do not judge. Servants of his will I hurry to set free. Servants of his will, what is that? It's the servants of the demiurge, or those attached to it, and servants also of those who attach to the greater frequency. Take them above the one who wants to rule over them, that is the archontic demiurge frequencies. And there was a psalm here. It was broken up quite a bit, but I wrote most of it down. I, imperishability, first son who was conceived, will destroy the dominion. Beloved, just one, speak as I have heard. I teach you as I have found. Pay attention to me, that you may see me. Who am I? For I have come as I am, and I shall not appear as I am. What does that mean? For I have come as I am. It's always talking about the esoteric. It's always referring, when you read these Psalms, remember to interpret them in a spiritual sense, because the messages are all of spirit and all of the divine. So when he says, for I have come as I am, it means he has come as his pure spirit, not as the image of the body that you see. I shall not appear as I am. It appears as the body if you're physically looking, but the essence that is speaking to you, the Christ consciousness, is the divine spirit itself. This is so, remember to understand these things in that way. All texts actually in that way, if you think about them in that way, the interpretation will reveal itself. James describes an appearance of the risen Christ. One time when I was sitting and meditating with one whom you hated, that's hated one was Jesus. He opened the door. He said to me, hello, my brother. I raised my head. My mother said to me, you were both nourished with the same milk. He is your stepbrother. Whom shall I find? Whom I shall find will come forth. I am the stranger, none of them who knows me in their thoughts, only in body. So the last part again is then, whom I shall find will come forth. What does that mean? Not physically find. What that means is those who find the Christ consciousness message, who find the message that Jesus finds through the ears, because they're willing to hear that message. So when they say find, it's those who are hearing the message, those who are attaching to the Christ consciousness from within themselves. I am a stranger. That means those who have turned their back away from the divine, dismissed its existence altogether, and all that comes from that. None of them knows me in their thoughts. There are no thoughts of those who are lost. Don't have thoughts of divinity. They only attach only in body. They attach to the material realm and all that comes with that. Okay, James tells what Jesus said regarding to Father. Listen and understand, for many, when they hear, will be faint-hearted. Your Father is not my Father. So Jesus is explaining, like I mentioned, Jesus was regarded by James as a father figure, as a father to him. So the father of James wasn't the same father of Jesus. Jesus' father was the Father with a capital F, the divine. But my Father has become a father to you. So James has also understood that the Father is actually the divine source. You have chosen rest for yourself. What does that mean? Chosen rest means he has chosen to fill himself with the divine awareness, the divine knowing, the fullness, the pleroma, and those aspects. Your Father, whom you consider rich, will grant that you inherit all that you see. So the material beings are attached to the material God. Call that demiurge if you wish. But he's saying that those attached to the material, those attached to the ego, to the earth, what they see around them, believe that that is their inheritance. But I proclaim to you that I shall give you what I shall say if you listen. So open your ears, understand, and walk in the path. When they come for you, to bring confusion and violence, pay no attention. He set his hand to something he did not understand. His work, which is far removed from the eternal realms, comes to nothing. His inheritance, claiming it was great, will prove insignificant. Promises are evil intrigues. You are not of the children of his compassion. So what that whole passage is saying, this section of this passage is saying, is that the violence that is about to be inflicted and the physical loss that is going to be experienced in this time, particularly to James, will not achieve anything that it thinks it's going to achieve. So those who have decided to embark upon this venture of judgment and punishment and persecution and death won't achieve what they're looking to achieve, because remember, there's a greater purpose to everything. Just because one dies in persecution, their message still remains. And it's not the person that is the carrier of the message, it's the message itself. It is the teachings, the teachings themselves that remains, that lives forever to an eternity, and it passes on from heart to heart to heart to heart through our own voice, to speak our own truth to each other and cascade it to others who are willing, who have ears to hear, eyes to see, and voices to speak the truth. So this is why it will never come. The physical nature of manipulation will never truly achieve its end, even though that may take a very, very long time in the ages, in the cycles of yugas that exist. Know the Father, who was not given an inheritance. He is unlimited, an eternal day, it is light. It exists in places the Creator cannot perceive. The Creator is the demiurge, remember, the creator of the material. He is not from those places, superior to those who are below, so he's only superior to those that the demiurge looks down upon, the abyss that's created under the waters of the divine light realms. Okay, James recalls what Jesus said about salvation and the mediator of salvation. I saw from on high those who came into being. Those I know are like me, aware of Christ consciousness. I know that everyone forced down to this place will come to me. I want to give them revelation through you and the spirit of power. Those who wish to enter may go through a good door. From now on, they may walk on the path that leads before this door, follow you and enter. So what is this door? Remember the doors, the passages through these heavens. You can call those doors if you like. They are manifestations of our own. These layers of illusion, we'll create those ourselves. We'll experience, if you believe those intrinsically, or you believe that you're going to a hell intrinsically, that is exactly what you'll experience upon death. I guarantee it. We are manifesting our own experiences. But when we know that we are of the divine, that is where we will end. And that is what this is saying, that you will go through a good door, or you'll go through many alternate experiences, if that is where you direct your consciousness upon leaving this. Because remember, your mind, your belief system still exists in that fleeting second as you come out and realize that you have left the body. There is a momentary moment, there is a momentary period, very, very slight, which will feel like an eternity, because there is no time beyond the material realm, where you could move yourselves into illusionary paths that could recycle you back into this place. And it had a psalm in here. For you are not the deliverer nor the helper of strangers. You are an illuminator and deliverer. You shall give revelation, bring good among them. You the heavens bless. You he shall envy. So this is talking about James. So the archontic frequency humans will envy. Called himself the jealous one, who live in forgetfulness, are instructed in these things in you, will be taught, or come to rest, come to reign over self. So what they're saying is that he'll be envied, by the one who's a jealous one, who's a demiurge, who live in forgetfulness, are instructed in these things in you, and he will teach them to come to rest, which is come to understand the divine, and come to reign. That means they'll start to reign over themselves rather than having others reign over them, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and energetic. You are the first who clothed yourself, first who will strip off your clothes. Become as you were before you took off your clothes. We've already explained what that means. Okay, James recounts the end of the revelation. He kissed me on the mouth. Look, I shall reveal to you what the heavens, remember the seventh heavens plus the eighth, the demiurge, have not known, nor their rulers. One who boasted, I am God, I am alive, because I am a father. Don't I have power over everything? You may become forth from this womb. So this means that James was in a body, where the material body was first manifest from the material realm, which in the mythology of Sophia was the demiurge, and be as I am. So he's saying, you may be in a body, but you are to become as I am. Remember, I'm saying you have to become that which you seek. Don't practice through self-righteous, virtuous, virtue signaling, symbolic practices. Become that, emanate and become this. This is what you're guided to do. Self-righteous, virtuous practices, they won't achieve that much. I can rest assured. And be as I am. I reached out my hands, but did not find him as I thought he would be. I heard him say, understand, and embrace me. Then I understood. What does this mean? I reached out my hands, but did not find him as I thought he would be. The resurrection of Jesus was in spirit form. It was no physical resurrection of him physically walking out in body. It was an appearance of the divine spirit of Jesus, the ascended spirit of Jesus, coming to those in an image that they recognized, but in an energetic form. There was no physicality to Jesus in the reincarnation. It was a spiritual form. It was an energetic image of himself as he was in body. So when he reached out, he did not find him as he thought he would be, because he couldn't feel anything. It was energy, and it was presence from within. The connection was energetic. The image that was seen was an energetic form that was emitted by the consciousness that was Jesus. Who judge have been judged. You did not spare, but have been spared. Be sober and recognize him. This is obviously, James professed the divinity of Jesus. So this was obviously the crucifixion of Jesus. And in the psalm, it says, he was the one whom he created heaven and earth and dwelled upon it, could not see. The one who will be, provide an ending for what has begun and beginning for what will come to an end. He was the Holy Spirit, invisible one, who did not come down to earth. He was the Virgin. I saw he was naked, no garment clothing him. What he wills happened to him. So this is effectively saying that the Spirit is virginal spirit. It is an untainted one. It is pure. So therefore it's a virginal spirit. And it is effectively saying that which is true and that only exists in imperishability has an ending for what has begun. So what was begun was what Sophia created, the demiurge, and then manifest these realms in the mythology, and will also be the beginning of the end of what has already come. And that will happen through each and every one of us reclaiming our divine awareness and knowing. Well, that's what our challenge is in life. And I'm gonna actually do a separate video on this to talk about purpose and how we create our lives, and what forces behind the scenes are driving us and guide us to what lives we actually end up manifesting. And obviously with nakedness and clothing is again the material, The nakedness is the rawness of the divine emitting from ourselves. Okay, the conclusion of the priest's report. Abandon this difficult path. Walk in accordance with the one who wants you to become free people. Overcome every dominion. He will not judge. He was not someone wrathful, but he was a kind father. He was rejected before he stretched out his hand. So before the divine was able to reach us, from when we drop into these physical forms, we'd already turned our backs away. It makes mine. I am not a master, but I am a helper. So this is James saying to those that he's a helper for them, but he's not their master. But he's asking them to basically look upon themselves, the silent voice within, which is your spirit actually. The voice within that seeks, and the leaning that you're actually always being drawn internally, but the more conscious attachment to your conscious and material self you have, the less you will hear the voice of the spirit within calling you to it. It's always calling you. It'll never cease to call you. Whether you have ears to hear it, that's your free will. And it says here, James urges the members of the audience to walk with the Lord. Look, those who hold office of judge are deliberating. They're waiting for judgment on James. The crowd were confused. They were not convinced. He got up. Another day came. I was with the priests. I said nothing of our relationship, as they were all saying with one voice, "Come, let us stone the just." And this is where it starts to become a little bit sad. So if you listen to this in your heart space, you'll actually get quite upset, because I was actually getting upset reading and putting it onto this PowerPoint for you guys. Yes, let's kill this man. So the martyrdom of James, the execution. Yes, let's kill this man. May remove from our midst. They found him standing by the pinnacle of the temple. Throw him down from the height, they say. And they did that. They say they saw he was alive. They seized him, dragging him onto the ground, rolled a large stone in his abdomen, and trampled him. And James cries out, "Oh, you who have gone astray." Since he was still alive, they made him dig a hole. They covered him to his abdomen and they stoned him. This is actually fairly horrific to me. If this actually was an actual event, this shows you the loss of humanity at the time and why. Remember, there are various messengers around the world at various times and ages, or yugas, of this last 26,000 years, if you like, which is a yogic cycle. Jesus came in the area of the world where there was loss at the time, and had to share the message of Christ's consciousness of love, effectively, of unity of us all, that we're all connected and one with the divine. Krishna came. The Krishna consciousness is the same as Christ consciousness, but had a message of Dharma, of purpose, fulfilling purpose, which was the message of the Mahabharata, as he stood alongside Arjuna as he was going to fight his brothers and had to kill them. But he had doubts and didn't want to do that. But it was all about Dharma, fulfillment, fulfilling the intention, purpose of your life. The Buddhic frequencies, what are those? The Buddha's message was mostly of detachment and of attachment to that which causes loss, that causes karmic imbalances, that causes materialism, and detachment from those things sufficiently that you can move on into the self. These all coalesce into a combined message amongst obviously other avatars that have come into this space to pass messages on to us. But this story was quite horrific. Now the next one, this is the death prayer of James, and I really like this, but didn't write it in its entirety, but it's almost there. And I'll read it. So this was the prayer of James as he was being stoned. He was still alive, reaching out and saying a prayer. But he reached out his hands and uttered a prayer. My God and Father, who saved me from this dead hope, who made me alive through the mystery of your good pleasure, do not let these days in the world be prolonged for me, but let the day of your light shine upon me. Bring me to where my salvation is. Deliver me from this place of sojourn. Let your grace be pure. Save me from an evil death. The desire to accomplish a work of fullness, for you are the life of life, and forgive me all the depths of my days, for I am alive in you. Your grace is alive in me. Now is the time and the hour. Hold Spirit, send me salvation, light from light, crown me with imperishable power. When he finished speaking, he fell silent. This is the account. That's a wonderful prayer of, let's assume this was a real event. That's a wonderful prayer, and it says everything in it. This is a sojourn that we have, but we'll have many if we do not connect to our divinity. And I would read this prayer over again if you guys have the time, because take the biblical parts out of it. It has all the truth within this prayer, and it has lots of emotion and meaning and spiritual content in this prayer. So I would urge you all to read this a couple of times and read it in silence and read it through your heart space, because it's very, very poignant, and that's why I took the time to write it out for you all. So again, I want to say thank you again for listening to this, and remember the prayer that you just heard. This entire chapter is telling you that you are your own second coming. We are messengers, as James was a messenger passing on the teachings of Jesus at the time. You are all messengers passing on love, fulfilling your purpose and intention, removing attachment and and creating detachment to the correct things, and having that becoming, which is this challenge that we all have of our own, which is our second coming is the revelation from ourselves, and then speaking our truth, opening our ears to hear, and allowing ourselves to see what we wish not to see, which is the realities of realities, and that includes the realities of our space on this earth and what governs this earth plane, and the darkness we've allowed to take over it, which will not win because we will not allow it to. And the strength for that to occur is that which is the divinity, that the Christ consciousness, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, all the other avatars of the world that we're asking you to move towards. So become your own second coming, and become and make it yourself, as Mahanji says. I encourage everyone to become what it is you read. Become what it is that you're trying to pursue. Do not just do practices and rituals temporarily for virtuous, self-righteous fulfillment. To be perceived to be good doesn't do anything, I'm afraid. You'd have to start becoming that, but becoming open and seeing the truth. Becoming open and cascading yourself away from dogma. An organized ritualistic faith is what you're guided to do, because the truth is here. This will be your temple at the end, I guarantee it. However many spokes of the wheel you wish to traverse, the center will always, the spoke leading to the center, one of those spokes is this temple in here. So I want to say thank you, and if you need any spiritual coaching of any kind, please reach out to me on these details here through the Gmail or the Facebook Messenger. And I do want to say thank you again for everyone who's listening today. I do appreciate all of your time. Please pass in your comments of what you are getting out of this, because I'm interested to know. And I want to say thank you again for listening. And please like and subscribe and share this to others who you feel would find my videos useful and fulfilling. And I say God bless, and see you again soon. Thank you.